for retention ditches, areas that the General Development Corporation didn't leave any property for us to access those. They sold all of it off. So we would like to kind of couple the two projects together and use some tree fund monies to split the costs with Road and Drainage District to purchase some of these lands and it's already listed in the code. Let's see. And I can't see it right now, I'm sorry. But we do have it in the code that we can purchase properties for preservation of, am I missing it completely?
Yeah, I think it was written back in the day to purchase property to like establish a
Right.
tree farm and stuff like that as well.
It's in
Absolutely.
A, under administrative.
Is it up top? Yes, acquiring and preserving land within the city. So what we would like to do is to tap into the tree fund, to split that cost with Road and Drainage District. We only need access as far as the Road and Drainage District side of it. So we would preserve the native canopy that's there. Our intent would be to remove the exotics and then just make ourselves a path to get to our water control structure. Now, there may be a time if that structure needs to be rebuilt in the next 20, 30 years, if it's one that's already done, or, at another time, we may have to go in there with equipment, and there may be trees that have to come out at that point, but those areas would then be replanted after that rebuild. And the intent is to keep them as preserved land and just provide access to our structures. And then the third use would be to fully fund the arborists. Currently, they're funded at 50%, the arborists, and that's an approved funding source for arborists and tree crew. If we were to fund that at 100%, we're looking at approximately $156,000 annually that we could reduce that impact on the general fund by that amount, that $156,000, if we were to pick that cost up within the tree fund. And as the city manager stated, the tree fund is growing quickly.
Questions first, Commissioner McDowell?
So when you say that it's going to have a $156,000 impact on the general fund, the arborist is split between the building fund and the tree fund. How does it impact the general fund?
I will have to ask
Here she comes.
MDS director to speak to that one.
Good morning. The arborist is not split between the building fund. Building fund by state law can only be used to support building fund activities. So the arborist some time ago was moved from the building fund to the general fund.
When did that happen?
I would have to go back and look.
Okay.
But it is not legal in the state of Florida to use building funds for that purpose.
If I may.
Go ahead.
During the last budget cycle, there is a position that they got a new arborist, and it said it will be supported 50% by building fund and 50% by tree fund. That has been the mantra from, hold on, I understand what you're saying, because we were trying to have it fully funded by the building department instead of the tree fund. And we were told, as long as the arborist is fulfilling inspections and reviewing plans, that it can be used by the building department, because it's facilitating building of commercial and residential. This is what we were told in the past, as late as the fiscal year budget we just approved.
I'll have to go back and look at that, but it's the Florida the Florida statutes are very specific, that it is to support the enforcement of the Florida building code, not any other ordinances that the local government may have. So I will go back and look at that, but we are looking at our budget going forward to ensure that all of the positions that should be funded by the general fund or the tree fund are budgeted appropriately.
So you're saying that it was shifted from the building department, that 50% to the general fund? I'd really be interested in knowing, when did that happen?
I will do
And-
the research on that and find that out.
Thank you. I have other,
Questions? Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
Yes, yeah, as you know, I'm gonna have lots of comments about this. But I do have a question about irrigation. Do you have any idea of cost, the cost of irrigation, compared to the cost of the actual tree? Like, if you have a ratio, like for every, whatever, dollar we spend on irrigation, we get 50 cents worth of tree, or anything to show that, because it's always been my understanding that the irrigation costs far more than the actual tree that's going in the ground.
And understand our intent for the irrigation, I don't have that because it's so site specific. So when we identify the tree location, we then look to see if there's irrigation close by that we can tap into. And I don't wanna mislead you into thinking that if we're gonna plant one tree and run an irrigation system to support one tree, that's not what it's about. It's for when we plant multiple trees in an area that doesn't have irrigation, that will be installing that. And those costs would be really on a, as required basis, because we would have to see where we were pulling from, and there's some places you may need to put wells, so those are some of the things that we would have to address, and then kind of formulate a good idea of whether it's worth it, or do we plant a different type of tree there that will withstand the, the temperatures and the dryness.
Okay, and then are there typically those would be for street trees, like on Sumter and Toledo Blade, they have irrigation, right? What other places utilize that kind of, linear, that you need that irrigation line?
So we've also installed it in parks, we've done some of that in,
Well, the 5 cents is, I know the fruit trees, that was a big holdup with that, is just getting irrigation in there, but that could have really been done with a water truck, right? That's what you said. We do have a water truck. That was my other question.
Correct.
We do have a working water truck?
yes, we do.
Okay,
And understand though that pulls staff to run a water truck and put staff
right.
out in traffic on some of
Okay.
these places. So we wouldn't try to use it there, we would try to use it in some of the, like you were speaking of, parks. I know that we've also discussed planting trees on city facilities,
We talked about streets,
not just streets though.
right?
Parks, any of our city-owned properties, which could be the fire stations, the Jessamine property, we're talking about planting trees there. Obviously, we wouldn't
Oh.
irrigate over there.
Right, and that's what I'm interested in. Where were those irrigation, what would you be putting irrigation, in what areas that?
So some of the areas that we've had to add irrigation, I believe we did it at McKibben Park. Did we plant 2 trees there?
Did McKibben?
Right, and we ran irrigation to those 2 trees.
Did we? I thought those were bladder bags, when we had that,
They start as bladder bags, but I thought the plan was to go to irrigation, I'm not sure if it got installed.
Right,
okay,
so it really is a case-by-case basis. I mean, we
Okay.
have to look to see
right,
where it's best and where it makes the most sense.
Mhm.
Even at some, I know that we've done some tree plantings at some of the fire stations, previously, so there's those places that we already have systems in place,
right,
and we're looking to just tap into that system and run another line. The way we're set up now, we really don't do that. We can't, we haven't been, expensing that out
Right.
of the tree fund monies.
okay,
Not looking to put a standalone in irrigation
Okay.
system for 1 or
Okay.
2 trees, that's not the intent.
all right,
of
because that
this.
was my concern about the irrigation, that again, you spend more money in irrigation than the tree itself, and I don't want to see it be used as a slush fund, to fund all kinds of other things, okay. All right, that's it for now.
Okay,
Thank you.
I saw Commissioner Emmerich's finger
While we're on-
first.
While we're on the irrigation system, the one reservation that I had was, like, new installations of, let's say, planter beds and stuff like that. You're saying that you wanna go into existing irrigation to tap into, to go ahead and water the trees in. I don't wanna see a grandiose irrigation project going in because there's one tree in the middle of a planter bed.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely, and that's
So-
not the intent.
But when you went and talked about the arborist and funding that 100%, doesn't it also say within the tree fund money to be expenditures that you could do it with equipment as well? I know it did in the past, I don't know if it had changed, because equipment could be trucks, it could be, whatever those arborists may need out in the field, which would take away from other funding sources as long as we had the money here.
Yes, sir, and it does kind of relate to that maintenance of trees.
Right.
And I know that in the rewrite, we've addressed that as well. And that's one of the things that we'll look at, not just with the arborists aren't the tree crew per se. We have our own tree crew that's funded through Road and Drainage District. So going forward, we would look to possibly expense some equipment out of that tree fund as well for maintenance of the tree fund trees.
Right, and if it's specific, it should be able to fall under this category. Back in the day when we started this, I was there, and it was very small monies coming in, you know, as it was. So we were holding every nickel and dime together, trying to keep it going. But as we progressed, there's a lot more money in there, and I would much rather see it being spent properly to where we can take off the district funds, because in the long run, it helps taxpayers. Don't have to raise the district fees as much when needed, you know? So that stuff is good, but my final question was, you were talking about personnel. Wouldn't, our environmental specialist also fall under this category as well for funding for that position?
So I can speak to that. Yes, the environmental specialists, their job literally is to enforce the tree ordinance. That's almost 90% of what they do. They are the ones who are reviewing permits. They are the tree removal permits. They're calculating mitigation fees. They're going out in the field doing inspections. They're, after the trees are removed, they're going out in the field to make sure that what was done according to the permits. They're also the ones working with code enforcement to bring cases forward for illegal clearing.
Well, what I would like to see possibly this budget cycle, me personally, was an item within that budget to see how we can fund this department and get it up and running, because it's something that we've solely needed in many, many times. And I know the citizens have asked over and over again if this is a bank that we can take it from, and seems to be enough money in there to get it started. Can we at least look at it as a board and come up with some decisions during budget time?
Yes, Mr. Commissioner, that we will be bringing forward to you, I believe it's a division, not a department, but as we look at having
Well, whatever the case may be.
natural resource manager position included in our budget conversations with you as a body, we believe that, you know, I don't know all the history as you do, but the timing is now for us to sort of prioritize and direct intentional resources to our environment. And that would be a source of the revenue, is this tree fund pot, if we could use it.
Sure.
Commissioner Stokes, you've been chomping at the bit for.
That's all I had, Mayor, thank you.
Well, you took a breath,
Ah.
so.
You're good.
Am I correct that we are gonna be taking a look at the tree policy and what we charge people for tree removal and other things that may affect the revenues that go into that fund? Am I correct that's something we're gonna be doing at some point in time?
So with the ULDC rewrite, we are looking at cleaning some of it up. However, we had already discussed with the commission the issue of the growth of the tree fund itself, and whether the commission wanted us to incorporate any changes to fee structures. And there was not a consensus to change the fees or propose doing anything that would reduce those mitigation costs with the ULDC rewrite. We are looking to make it easier for people to navigate through the process and understand what can be removed and what can't. But as far as the fees, we don't have anything currently planned that would reduce the amount of fees that we're receiving.
Because that was my only concern, that impacts whatever we might choose to use this fund for, because there are people out there, I mean, clearly bigger developers can afford the cost of clearing property, unlike people who own one or two parcel owners. And I don't want to revisit that whole subject here, but was what I was trying to get at. If the fund revenues are going to stay steady and the policy on that is not going to change, then my only other question is, was the tree fund intended to include labor involved in planting, labor involved in doing the irrigation? I mean, is there within the present policy or code the allowance to do that? I'm really asking because I don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's part of that disbursement of tree funds.
Right.
It's the resources needed for the management and maintenance of the trees, the city's tree canopy.
Because after all, I mean, we lost an enormous amount of trees, and it's gonna cost a lot of money to replace those trees. To me, the concept of a tree fund is to plant trees. And so I'd hate to see a lot of that money find its way into all these other areas and less trees get planted.
You really have to stop reading my mind. It's becoming very annoying because my question slash comment, we lost so many trees after Ian. And I've had conversations with staff about coming up with a plan for replacing those trees. I would really like to see that plan before I would feel comfortable increasing what's being spent in other areas. Not that I oppose off the cuff any of those suggestions, but I want to make sure that our tree canopy, that we know what we need for that, and make sure that that's covered, and then we can look at those other requests and see what makes sense. So Commissioner McDowell?
Right, I would like to revisit the duties of an arborist versus the environmental technician. Because I was on the board, I think Commissioner Emmerich was on the board when we said, hey, we want to have an environmental technician or environmental specialist. And that purpose was to protect the scrub jays and the gopher tortoises and,
As well, yeah.
and that kind of thing. That environmental person was not to be doing the arborist job of reviewing the tree permits and the inspections and stuff like that. That was the arborist's duties, not the environmental technician's duties. So when I heard Ms. Ray say that the environmental specialist is reviewing the tree stuff, that kind of made me go, wait a minute, that's not what their role was. Their role is to look and work for protecting the environment, the species, the wildlife, and everything associated with that. So
They do
when
that.
did that
But they
change?
still do that. They do all of that. Keep in mind, reviewing these tree permits, part of the duty with that is ensuring that they're not, when they're taking these trees out, they're not disrupting any gopher tortoise burrows. They're not disrupting scrub jay habitat. Those lots are flagged in our system. So those environmental specialists, they are actually looking at those lots to see if there is scrub jay habitat or scrub jay activity on those lots. So in the process of reviewing those permits, they're still doing all of that, and they do those things separately as well. But understand too, that the number of tree removal permits that are coming into this city are more than any one arborist or any two arborists could even handle.
I understand we have three
Have
positions.
We have
maybe not
3 positions. One of them is filled with an arborist, 2 of them are environmental specialists. Two of them are not certified arborists. They are the people that were hired in that position, but they are, as not certified, they're really more of an environmental specialist than an arborist. And we are working to reclassify those positions. Because frankly, arborists don't want to come to work for cities. They don't make as much money with the city. They are very difficult to recruit, and we don't need, for what we have them do, and what they need to do within the city, they don't all need to be certified arborists. We have one certified arborist that oversees those people.
So part of the arborist's job requirements is they must possess an arborist certification within 4 years of date of hire.
Right.
So they don't have to be a certified arborist to work here, they have to work towards getting it.
Towards getting the certification. And our people who are in those positions now are working towards that. However, once they get that certification, it's difficult to keep hold of them because they can go make more money with a private firm.
And we have a policy in place that they have to pay it back then, if they leave after they get that certification.
I understand that, but that doesn't help us with
I understand.
maintaining them.
So maybe the job description needs to be updated.
We
that
are
they-
working on that.
I have a few other questions, so I'll yield and let somebody else.
Any questions? Thank you for that, Commissioner. Any other questions or comments? Vice Mayor?
Yeah, with these positions, and I knew that George Murphy is the only certified arborist we have, and the other two, and basically all three of them are just involved in land development. That's it. We don't really have an arborist who's going out there planting trees. We don't have a comprehensive tree planting program. We've yet to get one in the city. Our first arborist, I think, was hired in 2007. I think that's, well, he was
No,
the
there
second
was
one.
one prior, yeah.
When I did that Salford Street Tree Program, there was another arborist. He was the first one, and then Ryan came in. And been trying to get a comprehensive tree planting program, and we don't have anybody who's dedicated to doing that at Dewey. Because all three of them are involved in
That
land
would
development.
typically be in the public works area where they would have like an urban forester who is in charge of all of the trees that are on city property, maintaining them, making sure they're healthy, doing inventories on them annually.
Right.
That's typically, you typically have that in your facilities or
But we don't
even
have that.
Parks
We
and
don't have
Rec.
someone who's just dedicated to doing that,
We
right?
do not.
I'm asking the question, but I know the answer.
Right.
Okay? I just want to clarify that for the newbies, that we don't have that. And that's a discussion we're gonna have, I guess, later about how to make that happen, because that's really important when we're talking about replacing those trees, that there is somebody who's actually going to oversee, one person who's gonna oversee that and be the tree person to make sure that they come to fruition and we're not wasting our money and they die and that's it, yeah. So we'll come back to that, right?
And if I could just jump just real quick to touch on that. We didn't in Public Works have even a dedicated tree crew
Right,
until
that's right.
2018.
It kind of
when I
got
bought-
thrown on you guys.
Right, we
Yes, because
bought
we
that truck.
haven't had a tree planting program in the
Right,
city,
so we
yeah.
do at least have a dedicated tree crew that deals with the trimming
Right,
and some of the maintenance, and now that we've taken over some of the landscape, we've kind of upped that, we've taken that over from the contractors on those high visible roadways,
Mm-hmm.
so we're developing that plan, or that process of taking care of the trees in the right of ways, but we don't have someone that is solely dedicated
Right.
to putting trees in the ground. That's something that we share, the duties are shared among my group.
right.
I
Thanks.
saw Commissioner Emmerich first.
Could you instruct Mr. Speak to raise his hand when he wants to speak, please? I mean, we all have to, Now, the one thing, and you had brought up a good point about replacing the trees, but I also feel it goes hand in hand, and this is my comment mode, is having the staff in place, just like Commissioner White had said, to make sure that when we go through this effort, that is being done proper. I hate to plant 1,000 trees and have 500 die. And I know that's not your intention, but I think the conversation needs to happen all at the same time. This is what it's gonna cost us, we're gonna invest in trees, this is what we're gonna invest in staff, this is what we're gonna invest in equipment that we need. And then we got the picture, and then we can either say yea or nay going forward. I think it is a huge package that is definitely needed for the city. Especially with all this huge development around here. And then we could actually pick and choose what areas we wanna enhance, with tree canopies as well. So that was just my comment about this subject, so
Are you done, sir?
I am now.
Okay. Commissioner Stokes and then Commissioner McDowell.
Since this is a workshop, perhaps it's an opportunity to discuss a little larger issue than just this, which is a city our size really has no environmental department. It doesn't have an environmental advisory board. There are items more than just scrub jays and tortoises and trees that we really don't have community input nor city government input into. It's a perspective I used to hear every decision we make as we develop this city has to consider the environmental impact. And it should be a cornerstone of our decisions as we grow our city. And Lord knows, everybody knows I'm an economic development guy, but at the same time, I think it's important that there's a representation, and not that it gets swallowed up into the NDS department, that it stands on its own 2 feet, whether it starts as a environmental advisory board in some capacity. I think city government needs that input, and the citizens out there want it. I hear it. They're concerned about all the development that goes on, and we need to hear it as we make our decisions so we can keep things in perspective. So, I don't know where this conversation goes, except that it's something I wanted to put out there, because it's important to me, and I addressed it when I ran. It's an important thing to me, as much as developing this city economically, so.
And I think the environment is one piece of that, the other is green construction
Got it.
practices, so Commissioner McDowell.
So I think Commissioner Stokes is reading my mind now, because my form of question.
Good at that.
Yeah, my form of questions, and he'll be happy to know, we do have an environmental advisory board. That advisory board was started shortly after I came into office. It is very well attended, and they give some great feedback. Which brings me to where my question is going. Back in May of '22, we asked the city manager to schedule a workshop regarding this same topic of tree funds. But we also got a consensus to include the feedback from the Environmental Advisory Board. So that was 10 months ago. And we got one memo from city staff regarding disbursement of tree funds, and that was in July. And because the Environmental Advisory Board wanted to hire an outside contractor to complete a tree canopy study. All right, well then we got another memo in August saying, hey, we're gonna get with the Environmental Advisory Board and have it presented in the October workshop. Well, October, we know what happened, so that never happened, which brings us today. But I did a little bit more research. In September of '22, the Environmental Advisory Board made a motion to have the following commission workshop lists to be discussed about using tree fund money for signage for newly planted trees, water bags on new trees, fact sheets, tree software consulting package for tree surveys, and a free tree giveaway. Unfortunately, we never received that memo. I haven't received that memo, and that was in September. So here we are at a tree fund workshop to discuss how to disperse tree fund money, and none of the Environmental Advisory Board's suggestions were included in this discussion. I appreciate staff wanting to use this $2.4 million, and there are points of it that I do agree. But we also need to hear what our Environmental Advisory Board is suggesting we use this money for. And that fell out of the entire conversation, and I want to make sure that that is part of this conversation, because we are here to have this workshop. And we asked them to make sure that the EAB was included. So I would be remiss if I did not share that with all of you, so that we can take this conversation to the depths that we truly wanted it to be. Not just what staff was looking for.
Any other comments or questions?
I do.
Okay,
So
go
we're in
ahead.
comment time here? Yeah.
Either.
Yeah, Commissioner McDowell, thank you for bringing that up, especially about the free trees. You're absolutely right, but I think that would go along with having a comprehensive tree planting program, and that would be that person's responsibility. I have communicated with city arborists and other municipalities, because they have city arborists, and have picked their brains for what they do and have asked them questions. I'd like to be able to have conversation, though I really would have to go through the city manager, I guess, to have our own arborist here who can give advice and to do things for tree plantings. Again, we've been at this for decades in getting someone who is just designated as our tree planting person to put in trees, to host free tree giveaways from the tree fund, to organize all of that. Currently, our three people, they deal with land development, that's it. They have nothing to do with saving a tree. When people have tree questions, they don't do that. We need to have somebody who is designated just to do that. I would have no problem with this shifting the funding around, but I would rather see 2 of those 50% taken out and fund a position, I guess, for an arborist. That's what their job would be. They would obviously work with Public Works, because they have the equipment and all that, but that person would be in charge of planning where the trees are going. This is the best way that we're going to invest in, make sure our investment goes forward and have the money for it, and be out there looking at the trees. Because it shouldn't be someone like me calling it in and saying, hey, there's a tree leaning here, or there's a broken branch. That would be that person's job, to make sure the health of the trees is being taken care of. Because again, I don't like the idea of taking more money out of the tree fund for people that are just approving trees coming down from a development site. And then, okay, again, the whole idea of the tree fund money was to put back trees. And I've said this before, after we did that street tree program, I realized that people who lived in those houses along Salford, some of them didn't have a tree in their backyard. But I was good with that. I could say that. I was good with that because we were planting 2 trees in front of their house. And as long as those trees are somewhere, that's the canopy you're providing for. And I was okay with that. It's respecting those people's wishes. They didn't want a tree, okay, but they got a tree in that right of way. And that was fine. They were fine with that because it wasn't their tree. They didn't have to take care of it, all right? But we got the tree there. And that's what the tree fund money should primarily be used for, is replacing back those trees. Because now we don't require people, and we couldn't, and we know that's why that tree ordinance didn't work. You couldn't force people to have a tree in their backyard. If they don't want it, I learned that, they don't want it. So that whole mitigation thing was a way to get the money so the city can plant trees. But we need to have somebody that is his or her responsibility to oversee that program. Take that onus off of Public Works as far as trying to figure all this out with trees. That would be that person's responsibility. And it's just about time. Like I said, when I worked with Ryan and I said, we need to have a tree planting person, he says he is just consumed with reviewing development plans. So the city hired a second arborist. Again, they were just consumed with that. And then they hired a third arborist, consumed with that.
Right.
It's like, when is this gonna happen? Because even when I said, look, People for Trees will plant trees, we have nobody who can review those plans. We have nobody who can go and mark the places because we're just too busy with reviewing development plans. So we need to have somebody out there. I know we talked about having these partnerships with nonprofits, and again, love to plant more trees in the city, but again, we need to have that ability from the city to be able to facilitate that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have to agree. I think we need to have that replanting plan, sort of
Yeah.
that post-Ian. And what is that gonna cost, rough estimate? What are these other asks going to cost? We don't know. Maybe we can do everything with $2.4 million, but it's been my experience in the past 2.5 years that is never the case. And so we need to have an idea of what these different things, not to the penny, a rough estimate of what the ask is. And then that gives us an opportunity to prioritize and give more specific feedback. I see multiple hands up. Commissioner Emmerich?
Yeah, I think with what Commissioner White had just brought up with the arborist, they had talked about looking at the classifications and changing them. I think once we get into our environmentalist division, I think that will self-correct itself to where the environmentalists on one side would go ahead and take care of the permitting processes, the inspections, that and the other, and then the arborist would be separate. And I would keep at least 2 of those positions as arborists, because down the road, you don't know what the workload's gonna be out there. If we have 3 and we can keep 3, that's one thing. But 2 of them are environmental specialists right now, move them over here to Block A, and everybody can work together getting this project done. I wouldn't wanna change any of those titles yet until we discuss this. But what we had talked about is the environmental board. I think it would be behoove us prior to, budget this year is to have a joint meeting with the board to see what their visions are, what our visions are. Commissioner McDowell brought up certain things. I may not be in favor of putting money out for studies, but depending on what the study is and what the cost factor is, I'm amiable to listen to what they're proposing. I have my own ideas as you do on what we feel is best for the city, but to have input from everybody and go ahead and say yay and nay, or we may say yay to everything moving forward into the budget process, then we know what everything's gonna cost. And then we can make a sound decision from that with that input going into budget. So that was just my suggestion on that. I think it needs to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Commissioner McDowell?
Yeah, I think the tree survey that the Environmental Advisory Board, had requested that we use the tree fund money is, I think it would be a very wise thing to use this money for, because it kind of tells you where we are, so we know where we're going. If we don't know how, especially now because of the hurricane, their recommendation came in July and then the hurricane happened. So if we don't know where we are right now and the areas that need to have the trees replanted in, the more dense trees on city property, how are we gonna be able to say, well, this area needs to be planted more when somebody else is saying, no, this area does? And we're only talking about planting on public land, correct? So we need to have that survey of what we have on that public land, so we know how to come up with this comprehensive plan, which I totally agree, we need to have for replanting these trees. Unfortunately, by the time all that gets done, these little saplings I call matchsticks will be probably half their maturity. So we need to act sooner rather than later to get these trees, figure out what we have, get them planted, have this program. And I'm not inclined to say, yes, use this $2.4 million for helping to acquire water control structure properties and preserve that piece of property at the same time, or irrigation. I need to have more information, and we really need to focus on planting these trees. And it's very unfortunate that the 4 staff positions, arborist and environmental, is so consumed with the building part. And that's why it was half and half building, half tree fund, because they are doing so much with reviewing plans, reviewing and inspections. I was unaware that that was all consuming, and they're really not able to do the rest of it that Vice Mayor had spoke about, and that their job description reflects.
City manager raised his hand.
I can
Is
wait.
it directly related to this before I go to Commissioner?
It was related back to Commissioner McDowell's comments about the Environmental Advisory Board and their meeting, but I can wait. Yep.
Okay, so Commissioner Stokes?
I guess, yeah, again, I still see a bigger picture. I mean, we talk about the tree fund, and this really is part of a bigger narrative. As we develop, I mean, we have so much residential growth. There's so many areas of the city that are in planned communities. There are people who reach out to the city arborists asking questions about their trees, what they can do, how they can take care of things. They get no answers. Those people are totally consumed with, as Commissioner McDowell said, keeping up with the, with the actual development end of the business, the NDS issues. I mean, we had to reach out to Sarasota County Extension because we had issues with trees that were growing into other trees that were, and developers developed within communities, and there's nobody in the city to really get help with that. And that's part of a bigger subject. The people I talk to outside city government who are concerned in the community that we don't have enough focus on our environment and on answering those questions and planting the right things and being Florida friendly. I went to Alice's People for Trees, the room was packed with people who had questions. I learned a ton of things I didn't know. And like, the city really doesn't do anything to help those people, all our city people, about this subject. And I heard complaints before I even ran, that when we made an attempt to try to hire somebody that was environmentally focused, they just got sucked into NDS and are busy running around with compliance and so I mean, I didn't know then the details of it all, and I still probably don't now, but it's just a subject that's time has come. We're that big a city, we need a department, we need a division, we need something that focuses on this environment more than we're doing. And the tree fund is just one piece of it, so I'm using this workshop to like beat that drum, that's all.
You triggered a question in my mind, Commissioner Stokes, and that is, are any of the impact fees we collect appropriate for use for a planting?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question.
We collect a lot of impact fees. Are any of those fees appropriate for use in this particular area? Because, and I'll get to you in a minute, I have a feeling, looking at her face, that Commissioner McDowell has the answer, as she so often does, but hold on one second. Because it does seem to me that growth is impacting our ability to properly address this. I mean, it's growth that's sort of sucking up, we hire an arborist and then they wind up dealing with growth, with development. Can a case be made with any of our impact tree funds that they could appropriately be used for tree planting? And I'll get to you in 1 second.
That's a good question that I do not know the answer to.
I'd be looking at
We might have
the
to-
finance
Might
director.
have to research that and come back, I would appreciate that. And I know, City Manager, you were wanting to speak on the advisory board, and then I'll go to you, Commissioner.
Yes, so we just huddled. The recommendations for the tree fund uses was on their December agenda. They met in December without a quorum, so then it transferred over to their January 9th meeting. So now I'm looking in February, trying to get the minutes from that January meeting, but when I hit the attachment, it says no attachments. So then I was just typing a chat to our assistant city clerk to see if she could touch base with Susan Hale to see if there was something sent from that board through us that should have come to you and where that is. And Mr. English said that they're meeting tonight to see what are the results of that was created, and the feedback from it, from this board to them. Now, I do have that list, and based on what they submitted, and I'm happy to read that or probably print it and give it to you all, maybe during a break, and then when you come back, you'll have exactly what the list of projects that they voted on while we try to figure out what happened to the memo that never made it to you, as Commissioner McDowell stated earlier.
Okay, thank you for
Yeah,
that.
so I'm working,
City-
yes.
City Manager.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your patience, Commissioner, go ahead.
When we were talking about impact fees and when we were talking about the environment and when we were talking about hiring a sustainability manager, departments, whatever that looked like, question came up to do a sustainability, a environmental impact fee because development has an impact on environment.
You were talking like dock stamp, was that the
And
conversation?
I had said possibly using it for dock stamps or impact fees or something. And that's in the queue to be looked at a future date, of which I keep asking and they keep saying it'll be part of the ULDC rewrite. So, I'm not sure if it is, where it fits in, how it fits in, we're patiently waiting for that future conversation on some type of an environmental sustainability way to charge either impact fees or dock stamps.
Right, right. I'm sensitive.
I have one quick question about the meeting with the, advisory board. City manager, pay attention, please, sir.
Sorry.
This question's for you.
Yes.
Did the board meet and did they vote on those topics? So what you're gonna give us back is what was voted on, not to be voted on.
Correct. I
Okay.
believe that, based on the board member, Mr. English here, they did vote on it. It
Okay.
just wasn't in December, so most likely it was in January. And then the memo was created and we should have received it after then. And I just don't know if that memo ever made its way up and out. Or apparently it didn't make its way out because you never got it. But if it did and they voted on it, then we can share the list with you that I
Right.
am looking at right now.
And that's what I'd like to see, is the action items
Yes.
that were passed,
Yes.
not presumed,
That
but
is correct.
that were passed.
City attorney.
Yes, ma'am. On December 17th, 2019, I forwarded a memo to the then City Commission in response to two questions: whether the city can legally create an environmental impact fee, and whether an impact fees can be used to create a city natural resource department. And the answer to both questions was no.
Damn, a double no.
Oh, say that again?
What was that?
Could you
Sue?
repeat that,
Yeah,
city
I'm sorry.
attorney?
I'm sorry.
Sure. On December 17th, 2019, I issued a memo at the Commission's request to answer two questions. One, whether the city can legally create an environmental impact fee.
Right, that was no.
And two, whether impact fees could be used to create a city natural resource department.
That's state law?
The answer to both questions was no. There's no state statute that provides for the implementation of environmental impact fee. And in general, impact fees may be imposed as a means of financing needed capital improvements to a local government's infrastructure. And the fees have to be based on the benefit those improvements provide to the real property being developed.
And if I may, Mayor? Go ahead. That memo is how we came up with possibly doing the dock stamps. That's how we were trying to figure if we could get around that and create some kind of a fee when there's the transfer of vacant property. And I remember specifically it was the transfer of vacant property would be charged for development. So I do remember now that you mentioned that. And the memo, the minutes I was referring to, so the city manager would have it for his information, was September 12th of 2022.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm sensing that the conversation is sort of winding down. Before I go to any consensus, I would like to hear from public commenters. Assistant City Clerk, do we have any
Mr. English?
online public comment?
Yes, Mr. English.
Oh, I was gonna wait till the end.
Mayor, may I make a suggestion? If we're waiting on this information, take like a few minute break and then come back, get
Oh,
that
it's coming
information?
back immediately.
Yes,
Oh, okay. Chuck, do you mind just sort of waiting
Oh,
10
no,
minutes?
I'm here all
You're
day.
here for the.
I got some things to take care of.
I believe we can come back and tell you, you have approval to discuss the list if we can find where they approved it and just didn't make it to you.
Okay.
But I'll need to convert with them.
10 minutes
Yes, fine.
sufficient for that? Let's take a 10-minute break and come back at 10:45.
That's 9 minutes.
Thank you.
The Environmental Review Board, is that the topic?
Yes, Madam Mayor. So the long story short of what we found was trying to go back through the minutes of the EAB to see where they actually approved this list of items to get to you via memo. And December, they didn't have a quorum. January was on their agenda. In the minutes of January, in January's minutes, it only talked about there being a future agenda item that was carried in the motion of it being a future agenda topic. So even the board members believe that they had voted on it to get it in front of you. But if it's a public document, then we can share this with you, and then you can see the list of projects that goes back to Commissioner McDowell's point of what they were thinking about before even getting to December, which was September, and then earlier than that, July. And then you can see some of what their considerations either are or are going to be as they continue to go through their process. But we can't find anywhere in the minutes where it says someone has
approved.
created, correct, based on what we looked at from post-hurricane.
City Attorney, any issue with our reviewing in this format, a list of recommendations that have not been voted on?
Well, I would just say, as long as maybe the record is clear, these are not official recommendations, that they have not
Suggestions.
been recommended by the advisory board, but they are possibly, ideas. No, you all are free to discuss that as long as it relates to our agenda topic.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to read through them?
I'm gonna read through them until I get someone to print a copy off and bring it down. You want me to read the whole list, or how do you want me to do it? There's about 15 on here, it looks like.
Why don't you read
Okay.
through them?
I'll read the whole list. All right, the first one is B/pollinator stations. Number 2 is acquiring Tier 1/2 conservation restriction zone properties. Number 3 is acquire properties adjacent to stormwater control structures for tree planting conservation projects. 4 is improve habitat of GDC ponds, which are overgrown with Brazilian pepper and other invasive plant trees at upper bank of GDC ponds. Next is street trees. Next is hire additional personnel for enforcement of tree ordinance. Next is improve current city-owned properties to support gopher tortoise habitat.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Improve current city-owned properties to support gopher tortoise habitat. Next one is tree canopy study. Next is buy, tax sale delinquent properties and conserve, identify other sensitive properties which may be acquired. Next is identify areas on existing parks and public-owned spaces where trees can go. Next is signage for newly planted trees. Water bags on new trees. Fact sheets for trees and shrubs. Tree software / consultant package for tree survey. And the final one is tree giveaway.
Great.
And I'll see if I can make sure you get a printed copy before we.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Emmerich?
Yeah, the one thing that I get from this is a lot of things that Mr. Speak has asked for himself in his presentation on how Public Works could utilize the tree fund. So coming together with the boards and having our discussion there would be, very good to have. This way it can be explained a little bit further and stuff with the plantings of the trees on the property,
Right.
possibly relocating gopher tortoises to city properties that are in conservation mode. Those are all great ideas and, something that would probably work going forward, so I look forward to a conversation with the EAB.
Yeah, and I think it would be very helpful, if possible, to have this list prioritized.
Well, they may not have approved all of them, they may have approved 10 of them, and we'll,
Correct.
discuss
And then
those, you know,
prioritize whatever
or
is.
whatever the case
left.
may be.
Commissioner McDowell?
I'd like to see about getting in a consensus to schedule a joint meeting with EAB prior.
Before we go to consensus, I did want to take things a little out of order and get public comment first, and so hold that thought. Anything online, Assistant City Clerk?
Not for this item,
Okay, anything in-house for this item?
not for this item.
Not for this item.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I thought he was already about to speak.
He had a card.
Yeah,
No,
but
it's
he's,
for general.
Not for this
it's for
item.
general.
It's for general.
Thank you.
Okay, then go ahead, Commissioner McDowell, with your consensus.
I'd like to get a consensus, Mayor, to instruct city manager and liaisons to work with the EAB board to hold a joint EAB/commission meeting prior to budget.
Commissioner Stokes?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yep,
Commissioner
yes.
Emmerich? Vice Mayor?
Yes.
I'm a yes. And I'd also like to put out a consensus to have staff bring back a tree replanting and maintenance program and budget, along with budget estimates on the other requests that were made here today. Vice Mayor?
Yes.
Commissioner Emmerich?
Yes.
Absolutely,
Stokes?
yes.
McDowell?
I am a yes, but did you say prior to budget or at budget?
I didn't say.
I thought you said at budget.
I'd like to have that conversation prior to budget.
Thank you.
That way then, when the budget is prepared by the city manager, makes his recommended budget.
Okay, Commissioner Stokes? Adding before budget?
Yes.
Emmerich, Vice Mayor?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Thank you so much. Any other, staff, do you need any more direction from us on this topic?
Were we gonna take anything about the land, acquiring and preserving land? Were we gonna do any actions on those, or no, is that coming back?
It will
Well,
come back.
we'll be discussing that with EAB because that was
EAB,
part of
yeah.
their recommendations.
Okay, and what about the, having an arborist for a comprehensive tree planting program? When is that gonna come
Well, I think
back?
what that consensus called for was to have staff come back with a budget for a tree replanting
So that would
and a
include,
replanting on these other asks.
Right, and with
That
the
were made
environmental
today.
division, all that stuff's coming back. for
including all that
discussion.
50% of this and all that,
Yes.
that's all gonna come back at that time?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Commissioner? Oh,
Just, if I can just speak to a few things.
sure.
First of all, the canopy survey, and I don't know if NDS was working on that or not, but in order to come back with a comprehensive canopy improvement project for planting, we're gonna need that survey. Likely not going to be done before we come back for budget. So our recommendation and what we're working, just so everybody knows, right now, what our focus is, as far as public works side and putting trees in the ground is, we already had a program in place prior to the storm. Those trees are starting to go in now. We've identified, at least, it's right around 500 that were impacted from the storm that we had our contractor, GPS locate. They removed a good portion, like 130 of those stumps for us
Right,
because they qualified. The rest we have to remove. So that's our second phase of this tree fund money, the planting project that we have going. That's probably gonna take us, those 500 trees is probably gonna take us through 24 into 25. So that will give us time to come up with a tree survey, and then what Assistant Director Wisner calls it the TCIP, which is the Tree Canopy Improvement Program. It's catchy. But we need that tree survey, first. And we would probably do an RLI for that project. Once we get the tree survey, do an RLI, let them come back and tell us where we need to improve the canopy on public lands.
So
That's just not going to happen before this budget cycle.
oh, right,
It's the timeline doesn't,
but is all that's gonna be contingent upon getting that tree canopy survey? Because there's we've had conversations about, there are street trees that, like Cranberry, Chamberlain, there's no trees on those streets. I mean, you don't need a
Right.
survey to tell you that you need some trees on these streets. So what you're saying is we're gonna wait until we get that surveyed before we can put a street tree in the ground?
no, what I'm
No,
saying is
no.
I'm going to replace those other 500 first.
Yes, the ones that, like on Sumter.
Right.
We already know that they had their
Sumter,
locations.
Toledo,
Yes.
we have, those
Yes.
are all GPS.
But what about where there weren't trees? We're gonna have to wait for that tree survey to come to tell us, yes, there's no trees here, so yes, plant trees there. Do we really need to wait till that?
Well, I think what he's saying is if we want a comprehensive tree canopy plan, then a study would have to precede the efforts of it. The ones that we are already identified and where we know that are obvious will probably keep us busy while we get that done. But how long do we expect the tree canopy study to take? Is that a 3 to 6 month kind of project? Oh,
I can't answer that. I mean,
So
we
far,
would,
it's been 5 years.
yeah, we would ask them, we could put a timeline on it, but it's gonna take some research. And we would put that out.
we'll
Yeah.
give them 30 days.
That would be tough. I would say
31.
it's at least gonna be probably several weeks to get the RLI back, go through the process, and then you're looking at probably 3-4 months if we push them.
But I know we have a meeting tomorrow to start talking about what our plan is, and then within that conversation tomorrow, we can start talking about what we can do in the short term, and then what we can expect in the longer range.
And we can identify streets, if there are boulevards that we wanna prioritize, we can do that prior to getting all that back. That's just direction we need from commission, if there's one they wanna prioritize first. But our first push, unless directed otherwise, is to get those trees that were taken down
Yes.
by the storm, get those in the ground, and that's a pretty big
Because my
project.
issue is, I'm having a hard time identifying how all else to spend that 2.4 million before I have a better grasp on what we need for tree plantings. So,
So on average, I think we're almost 100,000 a month is what the tree fund is increasing.
I can add to that.
Okay.
We've collected over 100,000 just in the last 2 weeks. I will say, for some of this, we did identify the cost for moving the 50% of those positions that we currently have into the tree fund. That was 156,000.
right.
We were looking for direction from the commission because we're trying to put our budget together for this next budget cycle, and those, if that 50% is not currently in the general fund, it will be this year. So we're going to look to see if it is currently in the building fund, but if it's in the building fund right now, it will be in the general fund or the tree fund if the commission directs.
That direction.
We're trying to minimize our impact on the general fund for a lot of obvious reasons, but,
Right,
so we were looking for funding sources that would be appropriate for that 156,000, so.
Okay, I saw a bunch of fingers going up over
But
here, Commissioner
About the
Emmerich.
salaries, that would be discussed at budget. We can switch it over to tree fund at
We
that
we
point.
were going to build it into the tree
Yeah,
fund
yeah.
budget and our proposal for this next budget year.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, we could take action on it at
Right,
that
that
point.
is, we will be requesting it at that time.
But the question I had for Mr. Speak was, is this study already budgeted? Your Kempe study or whatever, or this is something that we're looking at putting into the budget to go ahead and do?
We would likely use tree fund monies that we have budgeted this fiscal year in '23 to do that study.
We did get authorization to buy software because that's within our spending threshold. We have not had an opportunity to do an RLI or an RFP on that at this point, simply because of the hurricane,
Right.
and everything else that came along with it. But, along with that comes, the need for training and for ongoing, maintenance, and then the activities that come out of that software. The software is, typically it's a satellite software or a LiDAR software, and it tells you what your percentage of canopy is. It also tracks areas that show the need for additional plantings, heat island effects and those types of things. And then it also tracks over time to allow you to see if you have trees that are degrading in health. There's also a capability in there for individual trees to be GPSed, and then the health of those trees to be tracked in that software.
Right. Now, and I agree, as long as it's in the process, it's gonna start up, but I also am very adamant about replacing the existing trees that were, terminated by the hurricane, and then going into new areas of exploration and putting in new trees down the road. It's not something that's gonna happen overnight. You're not gonna get 500 trees planted tomorrow. They're gonna take care, it's gonna take staff time, it's gonna take resources. So let's get them in, get them healthy, and then move on in the process. If it takes a couple years, so be it, but at least we know that we're working towards that goal.
Commissioner McDowell?
Yeah, the software that you're talking about, Miss Elena, is that already in the process of being purchased?
We have not had an opportunity yet to write the RFP for that.
Okay, so it's budgeted.
Yes.
Okay, so, I love trees on Sumter and I love trees on Toledo Blade, but I am not really in favor of planting them in the medians again. We've seen how much damage they've caused. We've seen how much damage they cause close to the sidewalks being planted and uprooting the not uprooting the sidewalks, but the roots compromising the sidewalks. Using a phrase from Vice Mayor, right tree, right place. I don't know if those oak trees are the right tree for the right place along Sumter and Toledo Blade.
I really think it's beyond the scope of today's conversation to get to that level of detail.
And
I
that's
think
where
we'll
I'm
have
going.
ample opportunity later on in the cycle. Do you have anything else
Yes,
before
ma'am,
I go to?
I do,
Commissioner
because
Stokes?
that's where I was going with my comment. When we're talking about a replanting program that Chuck had spoke about, I don't know what that program looks like. I would love to see that so that I can make an informed decision. I also would like to know what kind of trees, if we are going to give authorization to plant on Sumter and Toledo Blade, what will that look like? And what kind of trees are they going to be? And if we're going to give that direction to plant them first, before we do the street tree program on like Cranberry, that is part of another conversation. But the consensus we gave was a tree replanting program, and Chuck said that he's not able to do that before budget. And I just want to make sure we're talking apples and apples and not apples.
I heard two different things.
Exactly.
I heard we have a tree planting program going on. It's the 500 tree replacement.
I don't know
If what we're looking for is what is it gonna cost and what would a canopy program look like, that's gonna need a study. Do I have you correct? Okay. Commissioner Stokes?
At the same, I mean, in reality, to replace the 500+ trees, grind all the stumps or remove the stumps that are out there, I mean, we're talking a multi-year process. There has been a number of areas around the city that have been identified with a need for plantings. I would really hate to see everything else wait on that. That means we're gonna see nothing for years. I mean, the dollars are sitting there. We don't wanna use them all up, but by God, that just further delays all those areas that people have been saying, we need trees here, 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 and here. What do they have to do with replacing the trees that came down in the storm? That's a whole subject. I mean, that's a major project that's gonna take 2, 3, 4 years to do. That means everything else is gonna wait? I don't know about if I'm
Let me
liking
ask
that.
a question related to that. Is it possible to identify some no-brainer areas
By me.
that need trees and sort of have an interim plan? I mean, it's great to boil the ocean and have the perfect plan on canopy, but I'm sure if we got 3 people in the room, we could identify 5 high-priority areas in the city that need trees and have sort of an interim to that.
Sure, so the hurricane trees are the low-hanging fruit.
Right.
Okay, again, our plan was already kind of in place. And then we were going to come and see where the priorities were with
Right.
commission to where we would move next. Okay, it was just replacing failed trees that had failed over the years on some of these boulevards. The hurricane kind of changed our direction. So we have those now to deal with. That doesn't mean that if you allow us access to the funding, because you guys hold the funding, it would have to be a budget amendment from the tree fund to pull money out and put into, or make it available to us, that you can't identify another area for us that you would like to see trees, or if we hear from constituents or residents that, you know, are requesting trees in our area. As part of that 500, know that we also have another kind of a smaller list that when we hear from the Parks Department, or we hear from even commissioners ask about certain areas, or staff in some of the parks, that we want to increase the tree canopy. So we have that list as well, that just when we go out to bid will be included. So it's not 100% the hurricane trees, but it's going to be pretty close, just because that's our first easy target.
Because again, people want to see action. I mean, I hate to say it, but government just takes so bloody long to do everything. I know I'm new and I know there's processes and policies and procedures, but by God, it doesn't take rocket science to figure out there's places we need to plant trees. We got $2.4 million sitting there. Let's plant some trees. And as far as deciding what trees and where they sit and how they work, by God, there isn't anyone sitting in this room that has the knowledge or the understanding, perhaps except for Alice, as to how you do these. I mean, our subject matter experts decide what makes most sense, where, when, and how. I don't think the commission should be sitting here picking trees, and this one should be here, and that one should be there, and that, but action. I mean, people want action, and we don't give it to them. This is a no-brainer in certain respects. I know the replacement project is enormous, but a few new trees would make people happy and say, gee, they actually are listening to what we're saying.
So some type of an interim plan. I saw Commissioner McDowell first and then Commissioner Emmerich.
2 points real quick. So I'm hearing there are 3 different plans. There's the street tree planning that was already completed and underway prior to Ian. Then there's a plan to replace the 500 trees caused by Ian. And then there's another plan for other city properties for parks to replace the trees that were down from Ian for the parks. Is that correct? There's 3 different plans out there?
I call it, I mean, it's all one plan. It's our plan to replant trees within the city, but it has different phases.
Right.
So phase 2 was that second phase that was inclusive of some of the other areas in the city. The hurricane has jumped in and taken phase 2, so that is now kind of phase 3, but we're going to combine it in. The reason we separated it out initially is because we have all those locations. It was so, the hurricane locations are easily available for us.
Okay,
So
I got it. So now I know what to ask for, because I'd like to see a copy of that plan. All right.
we're developing a map, but we should have that today, that has all of those locations, those GPS coordinates plotted, that our contractor went out there and GPS.
So when that's all finished, I'm giving heads up, I would love to see that. The other thing is Mayor, I'd also like to have a conversation about the tree giveaway program. We have talked about it. EAB has it on their list that city manager had read. We really need to get that ball rolling too and use some of that tree fund money to plant some trees, because there's a lot of people that would like to have their trees replanted. And I know Vice Mayor does her own thing with the tree fair, and they do that, but the city needs to do something too. And I would really like to see some kind of plan on how and when that can take place, what that would look like. How much money would they like to start? Obviously, we're gonna start small, improve that process, and then grow, kind of like a tree over time. So I really would like to give that direction to the city manager to start figuring out what a tree giveaway program would look like. Obviously, not millions of dollars. Start small and make improvements in that process over time. So I'll be looking for consensus on that when the time is appropriate.
Okay, that's great. Commissioner Emmerich?
All right, I got 2 points now. The tree giveaway, I believe, is a discussion that we have with the EAB, because I believe what their intent is pretty much like what People for Trees does. They have the trees, you can come get them and you take them home, because if we go to plant trees on private property, we're falling into liability categories.
Correct.
If anything were to happen on that property or whatnot. So I think that's a conversation we have with the EAB at the time of that joint meeting, just to get clarification on what it was. My other point was, I have to disagree with Commissioner Stokes on the urgency of planting trees. We have to have staff involved. Commissioner White can attest to this. Back in the day when we did street trees, and if they did not have the proper maintenance, they just died, and then they had to be replanted at another cost. So we were paying twice to get that same tree erected and be able to survive. So to just haphazardly go out and just plant trees for the sake of planting trees and saying, hey, look at what we did, may not be conducive to what we're trying to do in the long run by establishing a canopy, establishing street trees. I would much rather see it done properly and have the proper staff in place to be able to take care of them.
Okay. Public comment. Assistant City Clerk, anything online?
For regular public comment? For
On
general?
this topic?
Okay.
On this topic? Okay.
We already called for that.
Right.
Yeah, but I think there was a lack of clarity on what Mr. English intended. You're in general public, or do you want to talk on the trees?
He wants to talk at the end.
He wanted to
Yeah,
talk.
General.
Because you've
Okay.
all pretty much covered it, and we'll cover it again.
Okay,
Before
great.
you close this,
Wanted
I'd like to
make
get one more consensus.
Well, we haven't even started on consensus yet, so hit it if you're ready.
We have 2 consensus
We have
already.
2
Okay.
consensuses.
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I thought you were getting close to finishing this subject.
I am. So if you have another consensus, let's get it on the
I
table.
would like to give city manager direction to create a tree giveaway program.
Commissioner Stokes?
Can I finish the
Oh, I'm
consensus?
sorry, I thought you were done.
A giveaway program where the citizens are picking up the trees and planting them themselves.
That's just so broad, I don't know what
They
that
have to come back
means.
with information on what that looks like.
All right, I'm good with that then.
I'm a no until we have a,
Is that to bring something back to the commission? The concern here is utilizing public funds that benefit private property. So you all can use public funds that have a secondary benefit on private property, but there needs to be a finding by the city commission that there's a public purpose, a primary public purpose in doing that. So we would need to make sure we got that finding, on the record, on an official vote. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to approve the program, you could, but if you wanted to leave that program, within the discretion of your administrative management staff, then we need to at least get an official vote in a regular meeting on a finding of the use of the funds.
So a consensus that would like staff to come back with a plan, we're safe, not to specify it's for private homeowners. So just to have staff come back with a plan on what a tree giveaway might look like.
Well, I mean, if you're giving it away, then it's not going to be on public property, right? So, just to note that if that's coming back to you, that you all will need an official finding that there is a public purpose, in this program and for the use of city funds, and that is the primary purpose, so that any private benefit is secondary.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I
Yeah.
believe the city of Sarasota
Yeah.
has a program, but they're
Yeah.
planted on public.
On
Yeah.
public land.
Yeah, they're in the right of way in front of their house, but people have taken on the
The care and
owner,
feeding.
yes, they plant it and they'll take care of it and they get to have.
Right, and that's why in our
Sure.
current code, it says that you can utilize the tree fund for planting trees in public places.
So where does
They
that
have to bring
leave
it back
us?
anyways
Yeah.
with the information, and at that time, we can make that determination based on what it looks like.
So a consensus
I'm a
for
yes.
staff to bring back what that kind of program would look
Yes.
like. Yes.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I'm still a no until we talk with the EAB on it and get specifics on what they wanted to do.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I'd like to have a further conversation, and also I think this falls more in line with, again, having an arborist, having someone who is in charge of our comprehensive tree planting program. That would be that person's job, to say, okay, I'm gonna set up a tree giveaway for people and instruct them how to care for it and plant it. But I'd like to, see it further as far as with the EAB. What were their ideas? Did they think about that, using public money for
Right, and then we can
private
give
property?
direction at that point, once
Yeah.
we're more informed, that's
Right.
all.
I would agree with that as well. I like the idea of a program where it falls priority-wise. I mean, we have a lot more information that needs to come back from staff.
Right.
Before I really want to say yes to this, no to that.
Right.
Okay, so that gives you some direction, Commissioner Stokes?
I don't know if it's appropriate to ask at this time something I probably should have brought up earlier, but with all this talk about trees, what are we doing as a city to direct communities within Northport as to what they need to do? Because we have all our public property, and that's what we've been talking about here, but there are many communities within our city that have lost enormous quantities of trees. Some of them are still in the process of removing stumps and grinding. I mean, debris removal was all not that long ago. And I've had questions asked of me, like, what's the city direction? What do we have to do? Do we have to replace every tree? What do we replace them with? Do we really want to replace them with the same, black olives that fall over every time the wind blows? Like, where are we at?
You're
And
talking about the HOAs, private communities?
I'm talking, well, some are
neighborhoods.
HOAs, some are condos, some are just
The HOAs
maybe.
have their own rules. Again, I'm dealing with people.
Commissioner McDowell was in the
that.
queue to, is it related to this? Okay, go ahead, Commissioner McDowell. then I'll
And
give
I've
it
been
to you.
hearing the exact same thing, because the city manager created a emergency ruling that they have to do a landscape plan by March of '24, and that trees have to be planted, I think it's by September of '25. If I remember correctly, the dates, don't quote me exactly on the dates, but as we know how slowly government moves, those HOAs and CDDs are running into the exact same hiccups that we as a city are doing, because they have to create an amended landscape plan based on what the city manager's ordinance was, emergency powers dictated. They have to hire people to do this, and to hire somebody to get this done before March of '24 is becoming very cumbersome and extremely expensive, because they have to all be replanted based on what that amended plan looks like. So we definitely need a commission conversation on what that HOA requirement, landscape plan thing looks like based on what city manager instituted in emergency powers. And it was great at the time. I'm not squabbling about what was in there. I'm just looking at timeframes and requirements, that's all. And a
Director Ray,
greater-
you've been chomping at the bit to weigh in on this.
So we did issue detailed guidance to all of the HOAs in the city. I've communicated personally with many of them. It's typically the president and vice president of the HOA that are in those conversations, but we issued guidance regarding the creation and submission of the amended landscape plans. They do not have to be approved by the commission, they'll be approved by staff. We also provided them guidance on the different types of trees, so they don't have to plant the same wind, susceptible trees that they have now. We provided them guidance from University of Florida and the Extension Office regarding trees that withstand wind and have been proven to withstand wind through multiple hurricanes. We provided them alternatives. We had a lot of questions at the beginning about, do we have to plant these trees right back against the sidewalk because they tore up our sidewalks and, driveways and everything else? And we said, no, absolutely not. You can plant them in a common area away from those sidewalks and driveways. So we've gone through a lot of those questions. I still get a question occasionally, and when I do get a question, I'm copying back all of those HOAs again so that they all get the same information at the same time.
Thank you so much, because I can spread that word. It's really look to their own individual management companies and boards to get the answers that they've already been provided, that they haven't necessarily disseminated to their community.
That's correct, and the
residents.
the timeline for getting those landscape plans done, that can be extended. There's some provisions where we can extend that, and we understand the difficulty and how long it takes. You know, my own HOA is taking forever, so we understand that, we can extend that, that's not a problem. We're not going to be going out and, you know, beating anybody over the head with timeline requirements on this.
Thank you so much, because people are saying, we're getting, you know, it's always in the communication. And the folks that own the homes and that live in these communities are saying, what's up? And their leadership within these communities are saying, oh, you know, that city in Northport. And it's not that. That's what I needed to understand.
I've gotten calls from just residents in the HOAs, and they say what's being done, and I've said, we've communicated with your HOA, so then they go back and communicate with their HOA leadership.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that's great, that's great. Anything else before we close out this topic? Anything on this topic?
So just to clarify, when are we coming back with the salary, that whole discussion again? Is that coming about?
Consensus for that.
We didn't do a consensus on that. So where are we with that? We're just gonna drop that, or?
I thought we did have a
I thought that was
consensus on
coming back
that.
at budget.
Right.
We'll be
Budget.
bringing,
It
we'll
will
be
coming
bringing
back
that
to
budget.
Right.
Okay. And along with having an additional person or someone to do just tree plantings?
Right, we will paint the picture of the division
Right.
that will be in charge
Okay.
of now making sure the environment is taken care of.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
all set?
That sounds good to me.
Okay, then Commissioner McDowell, one last thing.
I just want to make sure that staff has all the consensuses and directions that they came to. We didn't give a consensus about irrigation or purchasing land
land,
or
yeah.
anything like that. So
Do we have
I
to do
just
that?
want to make
My
sure.
understanding was that you would bring back
Everything.
everything
Okay.
and some estimates of what different
Okay.
things would cost, so we can make an informed decision.
And also,
on
Mayor,
everything.
Yes,
it's
Yes.
part of the discussion with the EAB.
right.
Yes.
Would you like to make a separate?
No, I'm just saying that's still, but purchasing of
It's still
land
part of
is still part of that conversation
right.
with the
Right. That in there.
EAB.
Yeah.
So,
I just want to make sure that there's nothing lingering for staff. That's all I was doing, Mayor.
And is there anything lingering so
No,
that
ma'am.
Commissioner McDowell knows?
We have clear direction
Great.
on what you need.
Thank you.
Linger along.
Then moving on to general public. Are you all set? Yep. Okay. General public comment.
Mr. English?
Thank you very much. Excellent workshop, thank you. The EAB will be very interested. I have a concern as it relates to ethics, especially foreseeable. There's an issue that I want to bring before both two committees, that a board and a committee, as it relates to clearing public land without proper surveys. I have a issue and a place I'd like to have someone look at prior to me making the issue bigger than it can be, or is, or should be. You know, I don't like throwing people under the bus. And that's my concern. I just want the commission to be aware of that I have the concern because of another issue, what you all know, War Middle Springs, which I am also part of. My concern is having a conflict as I want to bring these issues before these boards and committee, especially the one issue as it impacts both the EAB and the Veterans Circle of Honor. And I'd like to try and get some type of confirmation today so I don't have to contact FWC. Thank you.
City manager, is this something that staff can work with Mr. English?
Yes, ma'am.
And get us a memo, please, as to what that's about.
Without confirmation, I'm not gonna, put it forth at this time. I
Okay.
believe I should be able to get an answer,
Can't hear you.
sorry, until I get some other form of confirmation to it, which I've already had, a perspective from another individual. And I'd like to get the city's perspective prior to any further.
Okay.
But my concern is it being a conflict of interest. I'm addressing as a resident, but I want to bring it before the board as a member of the board if necessary. Does that make sense?
Yes, but ultimately, I think we'll meet with you and get the information and follow back up.
And just as a reminder, for any public officials, whether it be city commissioners or advisory board members, if they have any questions regarding whether or not something that you're doing may be a conflict of interest legally, you can reach out to the Commission on Ethics and they can assist you with that.
Okay, thank you for that, city attorney. Are
Commissioner
you all
Ethics.
set, city clerk? Did I hear a voice? Okay, then I think we have concluded our business. I'm adjourning this workshop. It is 11:26, and we'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank you all.